We'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nikki, would you do roll call quick?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Wade.
Here.
Darcy. Here. Nikki is here. Danielle. Here. Eric.
Present.
Brandon.
Here.
Paige. Here.
Okay, all here. Motion to approve the agenda without the item D, because we will not be selecting second round interviews this evening. We'll be waiting until Monday night to do that.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Eric Morgan, seconded by Darcy. All in favor of approving the agenda with the deletion of item D, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, we will start with our first interview.
What? That's on.
Excuse me.
Oh, I just heard something surprising. Hello.
And our board of directors.
Hi.
Hello.
Shake all your hands. Eric,
Danielle.
Danielle,
And Nikki.
Nikki.
Nice
Okay,
to meet
perfect.
you.
Darcy. Darcy?
We met in the parking lot.
Yes,
Very well.
great. Perfect. Yeah.
Robert,
Yes.
welcome to the La Crescent Hoka School District.
Yeah.
We have a series tonight of around 12 questions, and if you have questions at the end, we will of course have time to answer your questions back as well.
Okay.
Okay? And I guess I will start off tonight, and I'll let you get a second to get ready there, just in case.
Just gonna grab my pen. I had pens in here.
Oh.
There we go.
All right. Are we all ready? Wonderful. All right. Robert, how do you plan to support and enhance academic achievement across all grade levels?
As a superintendent, that comes by developing a culture and supporting those wonderful people who work with every day at the administrative level. I have weekly cabinet meetings with my team, whether that be virtual or regular. In preparation for any sort of communication question, I did send out an email to Amanda to give you full access to how I communicate with my teams, with staff, individual staff members, with all stakeholders. And so you'll be able to access that, and it's an open records request, so media can have that too. It's an open records up in North Dakota, so it's not open sharing anything. And so it really comes from the board downward. Everywhere I've been, we've developed goals. You have a strategic plan. Then we work towards those goals as an administrative team, and we use the creative energy of our staff, because no one person is better than the group, in my opinion. And that comes from my union days. I was a union contract negotiator for 7 years. And I believe the group is always going to come up with better ideas when you are able to listen. So pre-K-12, I have a preschooler. They would, if I were to be selected, he would be in your pre-K.
Okay.
I have a first grader. I've been a high school basketball coach. I understand the value of all of those voices.
Thank you.
Before we ask the second question, can we get him a list of the questions, or do you have one?
I do now.
Andy? I trust that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I did that. I did a interview recently and I did the same thing. So you're the first though to do it. So I appreciate that.
So question 2, how would you address bullying and ensure a safe and inclusive school environment for everyone?
Yeah, with a son who experiences this on the school level as well, I understand how big of an issue this can be. And it really comes down to culture and what you build within your classroom. And how do you support those teachers and those staff who are trying to help the problem. I don't believe any staff member that I've ever come across would want a bullying culture, but we can't prevent it all the time. So how do we model and uphold those positive behaviors? And so through support and communication and being to and enabling those that are closest to the situation. If you look online, you search Robbie Lukens board governance, a paper will pop up that was part of my Minnesota licensure, and it talks about adaptive leadership, which then talks about letting the person with the closest perspective to the situation and the context of the situation, being able to give strong insight into how to handle the situation with your influence as superintendent. And that would be how you would enhance that culture. Now, personal example, I have worked as a principal on a reservation with over 50% minorities, Native Americans. We were able to raise English scores by over 30%, but I can't take full credit for that. You know, there's a lot of good things going on there. You just had to enable the people who are closest to the context to be able to shine. And so that's some examples of how you handle it.
Your third question. With the knowledge of budget concerns that our district is currently facing, can you give me an experience in dealing with similar situations and how you would handle them in upcoming challenges?
I'm coming from Harvey Public Schools. They budgeted all of their ESSER funds as current income to offset a cut in state funding. And then superintendent left. And then I had to navigate the challenge of dealing with a 7% loss on the budget. So I've had to feel that. I've had to have those hard conversations. I've had to write all of those grants to try to keep that budget rolling. And I feel confident that the Harvey Public Schools is going to be able to navigate that going forward. And I know that your challenge though is twofold. Because you have a bond referendum coming up in 2027. And that needs to be passed every 10 years. Without that, budget concern becomes even more pronounced. I dealt with this in the Fargo Public Schools. You run a 10-year annual plan by state law. You have to pass that every 10 years. Your bond referendum. North Dakota, they have to pass it every 5 years.
I experienced the communication plan as an intern working with Dr. Rupa Gandhi. My dad is a CEO of a communications company. I spent 25 years in agriculture working with him in his marketing plans. He was also a consultant for Flint Communications that has offices in Duluth. So there's an entry plan of my communication, plus for all the teachers, I made a bunch of copies. So I have a very strong idea and understanding of how to pass a bond referendum to make sure that your success continues into the next step. We just did a referendum in Harvey to try to help with the budgets, and it was not successful, but we did have a survey that said it would be successful, and so I have the learning experience of that to be able to advise you as a board, because sometimes what we think may be the right thoughts on a bond referendum may not necessarily be the actual practice. And so how do we collect that data to be able to make sure we make solid decisions?
Thank you. Thank you for this.
What are some ways that you plan to build trust and engagement between community members and taxpayers and the school that allows for continued growth of the school, respect for and of teachers and staff, and continued support for public education?
You have a written entry plan in front of you that maps out my first 28 months going to the bond referendum. I will be part of your community. I will have family in this community. I will walk in every day and develop plans to try to help build trust between this organization and the community itself, as I have in my current role.
Okay. That's your final thought on that? Okay, next question. Tell us about academic success. How do you define it and how you achieve it?
Academic success is relative based on the student. I strongly believe in personalized learning. This year I was selected by the state of North Dakota and paid for by the legislature to go to Brookfield, Wisconsin to understand their personalized learning plans and bring those perspectives to the legislature, which I presented in late October. I believe that every student has gifts and talents. My family has Native American background, and there's a word in the Sioux language, Lakota language, that says, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but it means that the beaver doesn't come with instructions, the beaver knows how to cut down a tree. And so it's helping a child understand what its gifts and talents are, and how do we, as a organization, lead to that academic success for that student. So the definition is individualized and personalized.
Describe a time you had to make a difficult decision that impacted the entire school district. What factors did you consider? How did you communicate the decision, and what were the outcomes?
Well, when you're going to cut nearly 7% of the budget, there's a lot of decisions you got to make. So my approach to a big budget cut like that is you're never going to be able to cut 7% all at once. You can't take 7% of your staff and just say they're gone. It's got to be 1,000 things, 1% better. You got to make things a little more efficient in every single place. And there's got to be grants involved.
That's a tough one. Just because of the situation. Well, I mean, you could say the bond referendum with the movement we made. So the timeline on the bond referendum, they came to me in July, my first year, and they said we have a 185-year-old boiler, a 67-year-old boiler. We have buildings that are falling down. We're spending close to, this year we've spent almost $1 million in maintenance on the two buildings. And so how, we haven't done anything with this. How do we help? So I went to the board, talked to the building committee. The building committee, I advised them based on my experiences to form a steering committee. In highly conservative areas, when you start talking about property taxes, it's not popular. So that steering committee was led by community members. Community members were applied and then they were nominated by the board. The board selected I believe it was 12-member steering committee. That steering committee worked with an architect that had been on retainer with the district as they'd attacked this problem multiple times over the past 14 years. But they'd never been to a vote, not in 67 years. Nobody had ever gotten into a vote, ever. So, in that environment with, in our current political environment, you have the polarized, you have the extreme conservatives, you have the moderates, you have the liberals, and you have it all up there. That you knew that you were going to make the extreme conservatives extremely irate, and you would take something to a vote. Now, I'm a very adept allocator of political capital. I understand how to use the different levers in front of me to advise the board to be able to do things that maybe hasn't been possible before. So we were able to get it to a vote for the first time. There's a very active political group in my area that may not have appreciated the things we had to do to be able to get that in place. But at the end of the day, people got to speak for the first time in 67 years. First in a survey, in which the survey said it would pass. And then once the reality set in, this would be like double their taxes. This would have taken their bond referendum and gone from, X and then put it up to like almost the third highest levy in the state of North Dakota. They said maybe we could get some grants, maybe we could work through these processes. So we're in the process of doing that. If you see those updates I sent to the board last week, we got possibly about $400,000 in grants set up for infrastructure through E-rates and other processes. I was able to get $1.2 million in bus grants through electronic buses, which then would offset and break out the diesel bus budget and be able to move that over to building budgets. And then this would allow us to attack the problem in a more efficient way, the way the public would like us to. So that was not popular. Anytime you're messing with government funds, it's not popular. But I've been as transparent as I possibly can. And I feel like we're effectively answering the bell for tackling a very tough situation.
Hey, I've lost my voice today, so sorry.
It's okay.
Suppose test scores are flat, the budget is tight, and staff energy is low. It's your job to set a vision that inspires action and hope. How do you lead through that moment, and what kind of story do you tell to move the district forward?
As the superintendent, you're the chief fun officer. You have to be fun. I'm a graduate of the ASA Aspiring Superintendent Academy. That's taught by Mark Hansen in Brookfield, Wisconsin. You can go on Elmbrook School's website and you can see how he influenced us. his communication strategy of, like, he's like climbing around on jungle gyms. When they come in your office, you have to try to make it so that they're uplifted. But at the same time, you have to be consistent in that uplifting. And you can't make everybody happy. You won't make everybody happy. But if you're consistent and positive, it will have an effect.
Okay. You discovered a longtime, well-liked staff member has been underperforming in ways that impact students. How do you handle the situation? What's your process for addressing the issue while respecting their legacy and maintaining staff morale?
This is a tough one. Because if they're a long time and they're well liked, they've obviously done a lot of good things for a lot of years. And standards change over time, especially in education. And so sometimes when you get into education, it's hard to stay current when you've done the same thing for many, many years. And what worked for you in 2003 may not work for you in 2023 because of the demands of your curriculum and the evolution of what we're teaching. Now, longtime staff members will tell you it's all a circle. We're just going to go back to it eventually anyway. But that's where we have to make decisions that are data-based. And those data points have to be communicated clearly. And you have to have a relationship with them. You have an entry client in front of you of how, and the first step of that is to be able to shadow and work with staff so you understand and they understand. You have empathy. Because at the end of the day, I thought about my kids there. So at the end of the day, you have kids in the system. I will have kids in the system. They are doing what's best, what they believe is best for the kids in the system. And you have to explain to them in a critical, tangible way why what is going on needs to change. And so working with the principals and working with the staff around them, because it does not say in the question whether the staff member is a teacher or if it's a business manager or anything like that, to be able to clearly articulate what the standard is and why it needs to change, and then working through the process. I think that's something my union experience teaches me. So there's a process for everything, and you have to respect the process. We're not going to shortchange the process. We will make sure that we go through that process with any staff member out of respect for them, so that you're treating the same teachers the same across the board as much as you possibly can. You can't treat everybody exactly the same because every situation is unique. But you do want to do your best to do so.
Thank you.
Number 9, tell us about a time you improved the special education services and programming, and how did you do that?
Our public schools is 30% special education. 30%. So when we walked in the door, we were siloed the last 2 years. We were siloed so that you're overdiagnosing, in my opinion. So you had, and we are the regional hub for special education in that area, and I serve as a vice president on the board of that special education unit. So, we're 80% of the kids in that unit are getting diagnosed in our district. So we're basically taking resources from the other districts to be able to service our overdiagnosis problem. I am a product of special ed. I remember in 2nd grade when they started mainstreaming students, and the teacher fought with the special ed teacher out in the hall on whether I should be in the classroom or not. And I understand how big of an impact that can be for a student. Because here I am. I was 8, so over 30 years later, and I have a doctorate degree, and I am going to write a book with a fellow superintendent in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and I have been the success story. So understanding that each student's level of success is individualized is very important. And understanding how to support that, even through special education, has to be at the foundation of what I do.
Thank you.
La Crescent Holka has made significant investments in its facilities in recent years, but resources are always limited. How do you evaluate facility needs, both urgent and long-term, while balancing a restricted budget? Can you walk us through your decision-making process and how you prioritize projects?
I break it into 3 groups. Obviously, I'm doing this right now in my own district. So you start with, and this does go back to my time in Fargo Public, working with Dr. Gandhi there. I know I'm being taped, and he doesn't like it when I mention his name, so I'm gonna be careful. But you start with your most pressing needs when you walk on the job. Like, what are they? Like, is it safety hazard? You know, asbestos, things like that. Things we're working through right now in Harvey. Things that are making kids sick. Okay? Then you start working on your medium-term needs. So what is it that needs to be addressed in the next 3 to 5 years? It's affecting our staff. It's affecting learning. It's affecting the processes that we do to meet that standard of education. And then the long-term goal, the long-term vision. What are we looking at? How are we going to make ourselves efficient in the long term? You know, in Harvey, they've been working on their long-term vision for 14 years. It's time to bring that vision to the people so they understand what it is. I mean, that needs to happen. Okay? So maybe if I walk into this situation, you've been doing the same thing, we might bring the long-term vision to fruition faster than I would have planned. But, you know, in your question, you talk about your updates, you talk about the things. I've walked around this building, I can tell you that there's not going to be, right off the bat, the same type of needs. So we'll work through our 3-step process of evaluating and working through that.
Can you please share your thoughts on how districts should hold themselves accountable for academic progress improvement? And what steps should be taken when benchmarks are not met? And please share an example. And that's question 11.
As a graduate of the Aspiring Superintendent's Academy with Dr. Hanson, we were taken to the San Antonio National Superintendent Academy, our superintendent conference. We were able to learn under Dr. Jaime Aquino of the San Antonio Public Schools and how he approached his first year as superintendent in San Antonio. He worked with his goals, with his board to develop goals that allowed the board to have a voice in the academics progress of the staff and the standards of which the staff would operate based on data that was produced through our administrative team and our work as a district. From that work with Dr. Aquino, then he was able to guide his whole district all the way down the 76 different schools in the San Antonio district to realize the priorities of the board and then understand how to achieve them. I've done that in Kenosha and Harvey, and I would hope that we would have the opportunity to develop and improve on the processes that you already have in place so we can set those standards again.
Thank you.
What is the superintendent's role in the broader community?
He's the face. I mean, so how Dr. Hanson got to be the head of this aspiring superintendent academy is Dave Schuler is now the head of AASA in DC. He stepped down from teaching it and then left. We had one session with Dr. Schuler before he left to go to DC. And he said, you know, right now, as millennial superintendents, he had grim news for us. He said, on average, the tenure of a superintendent in America is about 2 years. 2 years. And it doesn't matter the state, it's 2 years. So you guys are choosing to be in a profession that if you get to a place for 3 years, you're beating the average. But he said, but what gets you up in the morning? It's the fact that nobody can influence an economy or a region more than a superintendent of schools. And that pressure, that process, is something that I love because the impact of a man you just don't know the impact of a man until they've passed away. But if I can make a difference for a student the way that somebody made a difference for me so that I can be here today, because remember, somebody fought to keep me out of their classroom. And I can be the advocate that changes the stars for one student who might be able to do the same things I've been able to do. That's why I do what I do. And so nobody can have an impact in the community more than a school superintendent, especially a rural school. And that's what their role is in the broader community.
That was our last question. What questions do you have for us? And I open, any board member can answer any of your questions.
What are you proud of in our school district?
Our staff.
Kids.
That's it. Anybody else got?
I'm proud over the last couple of years, we've had a huge shift in athletics culture, which also always trickles into academics. It helps hold students accountable to be on time and be here and
Shift to improved athletics?
I would say the culture more so, but we're getting a better enrollment with athletics. That is also holding them accountable at an academic level because academics have to be a certain standard in order for them to participate. So I've been proud of that too.
Our Discovery Preschool.
Yeah, we have a booming community ed program, and we have amazing teachers.
Hockey. Sorry. No, I retract that.
I'm originally from Grand Forks, so one thing that I love about this community is the fact that it feels a lot like the Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, Minnesota, North Dakota dynamic, because there's a university on one side. It's almost exactly the same size. And so having come from that community, this feels a lot like my hometown. So yeah, I get the hockey thing. I was too tall though. Yeah. I played basketball. I was a basketball coach. My dad was an All-American at the University of North Dakota. My kids will probably be too tall and skinny to play hockey, but at the same time, they'll probably be 6'10" and be able to catch a long pass. But anyway, I would say, all those things, I feel like I compliment staff. I work to my leadership style. If you go and you look up board governance, Robbie Lukens, you'll be able to see that my leadership style empowers those people who are doing the great work. I feel like my kids and kids itself are at the center of every decision I make. I resigned from the Harvey Public Schools, and why was it? It was because we had this large conservative group, and there's newspaper articles out there, so you can go read the newspaper. That was causing problems for kids. They're coming in to try to hostily take over the school district, which would then cause an unstable situation for kids. And if you don't have a board that has a heart for kids, and you have those type of groups in place, kids will suffer. So that's at the center of it. And that's why I'm here, because kids are my center. I was a former basketball coach. I was a college basketball coach. I understand why those things are important. I have I'm applying in states that have public preschool. So you ask why I'm leaving North Dakota. It's because they haven't effectively supported early childhood. We don't have it. My son will not be able to take part in a public preschool program. So my oldest son had that because we were in that East Grand Forks area where there is an influence across, and we had that possibility for him. My second son didn't get that opportunity, and we want that opportunity for our youngest son. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm leaving North Dakota. And obviously, I feel like I'm a regional leader in community ed. The North Dakota Senate paid for me to go and report to them on how they can improve the community ed. And I would really like to be able to be part of your team and bring those insights to your district and bring stability in that area. That's all I got.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I'll just share too. I'm proud that we also are innovative and trying to not just meet kids that are wanting to be college ready, but also the tech ed area. We've kind of branched out with Lancer Innovations and some of that stuff. So I'm proud of Lukens for doing that over the last couple of years too.
Yeah, and the state really supported that, which is really a good thing. And my dissertation looked at funding formulas from 15 states, and Minnesota was one of those states in those 15. And the states that are advancing as far as workforce are doing that. And they're focusing on the public institutions that support that. Because the next the book that Samuel Coleman, who's the assistant superintendent in Kenosha, and I are going to work on a book together. It's how, right now, 0.5% of superintendents in America are millennials. And so millennials are going to have based on our time in the ASA Academy together, that's where we met, ASA Academy, are going to have a very large hand in rewriting the American social contract, which is what somebody expects when they come to America. And America is going to have to find a way to meet the needs of those individuals that are coming, because by 2040, there'll be more people who don't speak English than people who do. ESL will be more common, and we'll have to find a way to handle that. And so we are excited to try to bring that perspective as some of the few leading educators in the millennial generation to help with that process.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
motion that we take a 20-minute recess?
Second, Brandon. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Who would do that? 20-minute recess.